Hi, Sean from All Suburbs Building Inspections. Just here to discuss a topic with you today. When people are looking to purchase a property in Queensland, a common question that they ask is, how long should my building a pest clause be? The correct answer to that question is, it depends. And I know that's not particularly helpful. However, I'd like to discuss a few of the situations or a few of the variables around your building a pest clause that's going to help you to make the decision that's correct for you, rather than me just giving you a standard answer. So let's first talk about what is a building a pest clause. In Queensland, when you enter into a contract of sale for a property, you can either opt for an unconditional contract, meaning that you're immediately bound to purchase the property. This is often the case with auctions, of course. They are unconditional contracts, but also by private treaty, you can opt to enter into an unconditional contract. In all other cases, there is usually a conditional period wherein the purchaser needs to or wants to make some inquiries about the property before being locked into an unconditional contract. So those conditional terms or clauses, usually finance, building and pest, or a due diligence clause, are the more common conditional clauses in a contract. So usually a contract is referred to as being subject to building a pest or subject to finance, until it reaches that time frame wherein it becomes an unconditional contract. So you need to first work out, are you going to enter into a conditional contract or an unconditional contract? And in most cases, it will be a conditional contract. So a common question we also get asked is, can you renegotiate after you get the building and pests done? The short answer is yes, you can. And there are no specific rules around what those negotiations are. So if after you receive your building and pest report, there are findings in the report that cause you some level of concern, or there are unexpected items that were not disclosed during the open home or prior to making an offer, then that opens the door for you to be able to go back to the seller or the seller's agent and say, look, I'm not satisfied with X, Y, and Z that came up in the report, and I would like to renegotiate. Now, those renegotiations usually take the form of either a change in the contract price to reflect the cost of rectification for those issues, or it may be negotiated that the seller will attend to whatever defects or issues had arisen and resolve those issues prior to either going unconditional or prior to settlement of the contract. So that's what the building and pest clause is. That's what it's designed for. So then it begs the question, well, what's the ideal time frame for a building and pest clause? Now, this is where the answer of it depends is appropriate. So usually there are a few items that it can sway one way or the other, the length of building a pest clause. I would say the number one factor is how competitive the market is at any given time. So if, like at the moment, you're out there to purchase a property and there are several buyers for every house, then you may be in a situation where there are multiple offers. Yours is one of multiple offers that are made on a property after a viewing. Now, some people can opt for a shorter building and pest clause in the contract with the hope that that makes their offer more attractive because it shortens the conditional period of the contract. Another occasion or another situation may be that you've already spoken to your mortgage broker and you have pre-approved finance. And so going into the contract, or you've been informed by your mortgage broker that you'll be able to receive approval of your finance application within 7 days, and therefore you opt for a 7-day finance clause, and to keep the conditional periods the same, you opt for a 7-day building and pest clause. Now, the one thing I would say to that is it's often wise to choose your building inspector before you go under contract. Reason being that it's worth having the conversation with the building inspector to find out what their lead time is, because the lead time can fluctuate from as quickly as a couple of days out to over a week. And so with that information, you can make a better decision around your building and pest clause in the contract. So another situation, and this is perhaps a little bit more of a risky strategy. Sometimes you can opt to have a shorter building and pest clause with the plan to request an extension, depending on what the lead time is for an inspection, or whether there are other investigations that you need to confirm, like your finance, for example, prior to having the building and pest done. So you may request an extension of a couple or few days once you get close to the end of the building and pest period. So when it comes to choosing your building and pest timeframe, the best thing to do is to be pre-prepared. It's worth having a conversation with your conveyancing solicitor around normal timeframes, around the likelihood of requesting an extension and what that means, and what happens to your contract if the seller refuses an extension. It's worth having a conversation with your mortgage broker to get a good idea of your borrowing capacity and likely turnaround time for the lenders for finance approval, and if it's within your scope, getting your finance pre-approved to speed up that process. It's also worth having a conversation with a trusted building inspector to find out from them what their lead time is, so that you can make an informed decision about what time frame you're going to put on the contract, because it would be a shame to opt for, say, a 5-day building and pest clause, and then call your chosen building inspector and they say to you, look, I've got a 7-day lead time at the moment. And so then you either have to opt for another building inspector, or you then have to request an extension. And so that's information that you want to know ahead of time if you can. Now, when it comes to the wording for your building and pest clause, we would strongly advise that you speak to your conveyancing solicitor ahead of time about the wording of the building and pest clause. So they're pretty standard, but there are some selling agents out there who will opt to have a very specific building and pest clause in their contracts. Some of these building and pest clauses can be restrictive in that they state that a contract can only be cancelled or renegotiated if timber pest and or structural issues are found, in which case that limits your options as a buyer. And so I would strongly recommend speaking to your conveyancing solicitor, making sure that the wording of the building and pest clause and the finance clause, for that matter, or due diligence clause, are worded in a way that keeps your options open and allows you to make, or allows you discretion in your decision making after you receive the findings of your building and pest report. Another common question we ask is, how long does a building and pest take? So a building and pest inspection on the day usually takes somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the size of your property. Can be less time if it's a smaller unit or a studio apartment, but I would allow for an hour and a half to 2 hours for your building and pest inspection. It's pretty commonplace these days that the building inspection company will turn your report around by close of business the following day or within 24 hours. And if you're tight on your time frame, sometimes you can request from your building inspector that they turn the report around for you the same day. So those are all important factors to consider. And in fact, that leads me to another point then. It's wise not to do your building and pest inspection or to schedule the building and pest inspection on the last day of your building and pest clause, because you need time to receive the report, read the report, ask any questions you might have to the building inspector, and then if there are items, you actually do need time to be able to go back to the other party and say, I need to discuss some of the items that were found inside the building and pest report, which may end up in renegotiations of the contract price or the contract terms. If you leave it until the last day, even if you get your report on the last day, you may not get it until the afternoon, and then your building and pest clause closes at 5 p.m. And if you don't go back and say, we'd like to satisfy the building and pest clause, and you leave it open-ended, this is something to discuss with your conveyancing solicitor, but that also, I believe, opens up some options that the seller may cancel the contract if you don't satisfy the building and pest clause and leave it open-ended at the expiration of the building and pest clause timeframe. So I hope that information has been helpful, and when considering the question, what's the ideal building and pest clause time frame? As I've discussed, there are a lot of variables to that, and so preparedness is going to be your number one asset in making that decision, so that you can make the decision that's correct for you and your circumstances. So I hope that helps. Thanks.